So tonight I'm going to be trying to focus on some hands-on strategies for parents, teachers, any individuals who work with children who have attention deficit disorder. I'm not going to go a lot into what is attention deficit disorder or how do I know if a child has attention deficit disorder, because that would be a whole talk in itself, and I really want to get into sort of tips and strategies and hands-on tonight. One thing that we know for sure about attention deficit disorder is that it looks different in different children, but it tends to cause impairments in a lot of different areas. So sometimes when people hear the term ADHD, they sort of think of a busy child who doesn't sit still in school. ADHD is a lot more than that, and it causes difficulties in far more areas than just school. School would be a big one, but it causes problems within the family environment. It causes safety concerns, significant behavioral concerns in at least half of kids with ADHD, difficulty in making friends for some kids with ADHD, even large motor and small motor, handwriting and bike riding, that sort of motor activity can be impaired in ADHD, and adaptive functioning, like getting yourself dressed for school and tying your shoelaces and sort of knowing how to go through the structure of a day. All of these things are impaired by ADHD. So if you look at all those areas of impairment, for a child with significant ADHD, a lot of their world can be problematic, and they really need to be taught and helped with some coping skills in all of these areas. In terms of school, we know that school is certainly impacted in children with attention deficit disorder. We see reduced productivity, and the example I always use, the kids that I work with, they'll often come home with homework assignments such as, I'm going to give you a word and you have to use it in a sentence. And so the word might be cat, and the typical child might write, you know, I have a cat and his name is Fluffy and he is white. A child with ADHD will typically take the fastest way they can through the sentence. So it's I like cats. And the next color's blue. I like blue. I hate red. So it's a three-word sentence. It's as short as you can get it, and that's even for kids with ADHD that don't have handwriting problems, which are very common. So parents often talk about that, as do teachers. If they were to have to do that orally, they might do a better job sort of verbally. Lower achievement in academic areas is more common in kids with ADHD. Poor handwriting in probably 60% of kids with ADHD. Some of that is helped with medication, but not all. And sometimes kids with ADHD have handwriting that looks like it is from a much younger kid. More retention in terms of being held back. Now, some of that data is old because kids are much less likely to be held back now, but certainly more difficulties that would have led to retention. More school dropouts as they get older. And when we look at sort of long-term effects with ADHD, we're looking at fewer children entering university and far fewer university completers in terms of children and adolescents with ADHD. In terms of safety risks, we know that ADHD is a very significant predictor of safety issues. Compared to typical non-ADHD kids, we're looking at double the health care costs. So that's even more than asthmatics. And that's due to 2 to 4 times the risk of injuries. And so that's your kids who say, you know, I'm Superman on the swing, and I'm going to see if I can get this swing to go all around the swing set, and off they fly, and they break an arm or they break a leg, and they end up in emergency. 3 times the risks of poisonings. So I've had kids say to me, you know, I was playing with that chemistry set, and then I wondered what that blue crystal would taste like, and when I was chewing it, I kind of realized this is really burning my mouth, and that's kind of when I thought, maybe I shouldn't have, you know, put that in my mouth. Or the kids that will go out to the backyard and see various berries and pop into their mouth, those sorts of things. So not trying to put something in their body that they shouldn't have, but just sort of accidentally, I wonder what that tastes like. And far more motor vehicle accidents as teens. So we'll talk a little bit later about the immaturity of kids with ADHD, but more likely to drive quickly, more likely to make a last-minute turn, more likely to just be doing impulsive things while driving that lead to safety and traffic accidents. In terms of parenting, children with ADHD are more difficult to parent than, again, your non-ADHD child. They tend to be less compliant with directions and commands. Some of that is because they are more likely to have behavioral issues. Some of that is because truly it went in one ear and out the other when they were given a direction. So when they hear, go get your green boots and put on your school bag and get your lunchbox and put it in your school bag, it's just way too much, and they sort of get the last part of that long sentence, or they get the first part, and so they may look like they're being less compliant when in fact they weren't attempting to do that. They weren't doing that out of stubbornness. It was just too much information and too overwhelming for them. They're far more talkative, and sometimes that doesn't sound like a big deal unless you are a parent or a teacher that spent a great deal of time in a small environment with a really, really talkative child. And all of a sudden it does seem like a big deal. I've certainly had parents say to me, I feel like my ears are going to fall off. We're doing a 6-hour drive to Cape Breton and I can't stand it anymore. Yeah, so I see some people laughing because they know what that's like. So I've had parents say to me, can I get those things like cabs have that put a little blocker up from the back seat? They're not being bad, they're just, oh, look at that, there's an airplane, there's the mountains, oh, the mountains are green, and eventually it's just, I would like some silence. Can be more negative and certainly can be more defiant. And that's about half of kids with ADHD that start to get into being more defiant, more actively oppositional. And the reason for that is because that's that impulsivity factor that we see in kids with ADHD. So again, a typical child, when they hear their parents say it's time to turn off the TV and come up for dinner, sort of takes that split second to think, I don't want to do that, but I might as well do it because if not, I'm going to get in trouble. Where a child with ADHD might impulsively say, no, make me, those sorts of things. And so we have to help them out with that and let them know, there's going to be significant concrete sort of structure and consequences around that. Can be much more demanding. And I was chatting with a mom this week who said in the evenings her child has taken to going, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. And so that's that sort of demanding, repetitive, entertain me, play with me. They're less able to entertain themselves, moving around from toy to toy to toy, activity to activity, and that can be overwhelming for teachers as well, who will say, it's constantly hand up, another question. And sometimes teachers will say, I know he knows the answer to this question, but it's more, okay, I'm looking for sort of a chance to talk, I'm looking for something to stimulate myself, and so maybe I can get the teacher to come over here and chat with me for a moment. The other thing that can make parenting difficult in terms of ADHD is that greater emotional reactivity that kids with ADHD show. So when they're happy, the great thing about kids with ADHD is when they're happy, they are truly super happy. You want to see joy, you want to see a child with ADHD that something good has happened to. But when they're sad, it's sort of Academy Award winning tears flying off the face, and when they're angry, watch out. So everything is a little more heightened and more significant in terms of that reaction to emotions that you see with ADHD. Not so good as a parent when you're dealing with the negative emotions like the upset and the anger. What we see over time is that parents start to become a little less responsive, and that's not in a negative way. It's just that the bar gets raised in terms of what is a negative from the child, and so parents start to be a little less reactive to the child initially saying no or to a rude tone or that sort of thing, and we can talk about what that's coming from in a little bit. People will go into houses and with parents and children when a child has ADHD, and they'll say, the parents are more negative than other parents, and I want to talk about what that's coming from. They give less rewards, and they're giving a whole bunch of commands, so they're repeating themselves over and over and over again.